And I guess our speaker is already here. Okay, so to start with, let's have the welcome remarks to inspire our trailblazer to join us. I mean, to watch and to be inspired on how we should run, no? Okay, so to start with, let's have our dear Chancellor, Attorney Albino, for the welcome remarks. Attorney, the virtual floor is all yours. Okay, so once again, good morning, everyone. So welcome to our day one of our lecture series. Now, to start our day one of the lecture series, we'll have the preliminary first. Okay, so Ma'am Jai, for the preliminaries, we'll have the opening prayer and as well as the hand videos for the pambansang awit. Ma'am Jai, please take it away.
Let us bow our heads and put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Dear Heavenly Father,
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
There you have it. Thank you and welcome to our day one of the lecture series. So in a term, we will be having 4 lecture series, no? So for 2 lecture series in a term, I'm sorry. Now for the midterm, we will be having 2, and for the final term, we will be having 2 also. Okay, so okay. I guess we're good to go now to start with. I think our dear Chancellor is already here in our virtual Zoom, in our virtual room, rather, sorry. Wala. Sige, so if ever makabalik atong Chancellor, no, we will have his welcome remarks. So now to start with, allow me to introduce our speaker. Okay, so our speaker is the head of programs of community and ecosystem at Cubo Innovation Hub. No other than we have Miss Karla Legaspi. Ma'am Karla, are you here already, Ma'am Karla?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
There
Hello,
you have it. Thank you
everyone.
so much, Ma'am Carla, for gracing us your time, for gracing us your expertise to share on our students. Ma'am Carla, you may take the floor, ma'am.
All right. Let me know if the chancellor comes in the room. Let's give him some minutes to share
Yeah.
maybe a brief message. Just chat me in if that can be inserted some way. We will we will give a few minutes for that. But good morning, everyone. I hope I'm coming in clear. I am actually broadcasting or coming to you in this call from Bicol. The Kubo Innovation Hub team is stationed in Makati, but the team is now currently more than a week in Bicol because we are working with a few schools here also. So, ayan, we're multi-regional today. Let me know if my connection is clear, my audio is clear. If there is any concern on my audio, if I'm coming in choppy, I hope you can chat that in so I know. And I will also share my slides so that everyone will be guided. So while I'm doing that, let me just papers and review. I hope everyone is having a great morning, whether you are in the Zoom call or in the Facebook Live. I know we're broadcasting live also. Um, can I have an emoji first from the Zoom room? Can I see the people in the Zoom room? How has your morning been? Can you represent that with an emoji while I share my slides on my laptop? Ayan, I see people with heart. That's on chat or reaction. How has your morning been? If nakapag-coffee na, drop a coffee emoji on the chat so I know how the people are feeling. Puro heart. Happy hearts this morning. I hope you are all okay. Sorry, I'm just sharing my screen on my side so that we can get started. Okay, I hope that you see my slides. My slides are okay. Say okay on chat for the people on Zoom. So I know you're with me. All right. Let me see if people are okay. People are chatting. All right. I'll leave my chat open so that I see if our dear chancellor comes in. But we will get started. All right. So I believe I am buena mano. Ayan, more okays on the chat. Thank you. I have an active crowd on the Zoom room, and I hope you're okay also if you're watching from Facebook Live. Okay. I think I'm buena mano. I might be the first on this online learning series for Tech 101 specifically, but I was tasked to share about customer discovery. If you have taken your technopreneurship subject, you might have already chanced upon customer discovery or maybe just understanding your customer segment, your target market. You might have gone through customer profiling or similar topics related to this. But for this morning, for the next 30 to 40 minutes, we will talk about customer discovery and how this is going to help you if you are doing an idea, whether that is through technology, if you are having your capstone project or your thesis that deals with people and customers, right? So, just managing expectations for us. How will we be doing this in this online session? Coverage lang about customer discovery. We will be tackling the what, the when, the how, and the why of customer discovery. Very specifically, what is customer discovery muna? If you're a beginner, if this is your first time, if this is a very early stage or beginner class for you, especially in technopreneurship, let's see what this customer discovery is all about. Two is, when do you engage in it? When can you use the customer discovery process, mindset, etc. Right? If you are still a freshman student, if you are a graduating student, if you are out in the real world, when can you use customer discovery? Next is how? The process. How can you go about it? Are there any activities that you can do, whether individually or as a group, to actually discover your customers and to understand them better? And lastly, why is it important? Why are we talking about this? Why are your professors in USTP and the Center of Entrepreneurship and Technology bringing this session to you? May value ba to you as a student to know about this? All right, but going back and maybe segueing into the topic, hello po again. I'm Karla Legaspi. I'm head of programs for community and ecosystem activities at Kubo Innovation Hub. So, particularly for me and my team, we run the awareness programs, the training programs for innovation explorers. And when I say innovation explorers, that also covers both students and teachers in universities. So if any student team, if any professor mentor is going into maybe starting an idea for a startup challenge for a hackathon, we usually have trainings that can help them there, right? For the professors, it's also how they can better share their knowledge in teaching technopreneurship in school, right? So as Kubo Innovation Hub, yun po yung logo namin if you see my screen sa baba. It's actually Kubo as in the bahay kubo. The thing in my background, right? The Nipa hut of the Philippines. It's because we want to be the home, the Filipino home for Filipino innovators and Filipino startup founders. And we are an enabler, a startup enabler helping technopreneurs in all stages all around the Philippines. So inuumpisahan ko na kayo ng terms, but can I see either a raise of hands or maybe me on chat for those in the room who here are already familiar with startups? Me on the room or a reaction on the anong tawag? Reaction on your account if you are already familiar with startups. I'm seeing the participant list kung may nag-react or a me on the chat if narinig nyo na what startups are in the innovation space, what startups are. So far, wala pa akong nakikita. So, I am assuming, at least at this point, that beginner tayong lahat. This might be the first time you're hearing about startups. Except for maybe a few of your faculty that I know that is in this room, right? So, but I will ask, diba, what is a startup anyway? And bakit ko kayo sinisimulan ng K-drama poster and the talk on startups? Who has seen the K-drama startup? Whether that is the Korean version or the Filipino version featuring, who was it? Bea Alonzo, right? So can I get a me on the chat if you saw or you've watched the startup K-drama, Team Good Boy, Team Dosan, right? Whether that is the Korean version that you see the poster on screen, or there was an adaptation actually in the Philippines, right? With Bea Alonzo, I know the bida. Okay, may ilan. Okay, I have a few people who has watched Startup the K-drama. All right, why am I starting with this? Because the mindset and the thought process of customer discovery, our topic today, is highly used and is always a process that is used in the startup space. So I wanted to explain this to you so you might better relate to that mindset and thought process, and maybe let me know if that later is a bit clearer for you. Okay, so for the few people who have already watched the startup series, you may know etong dalawa who are on screen. Oh, says internet connection is unstable on my end. Let me know if choppy. Ha. So the bida on the screen, right? They are a pair and they have teammates in the K-drama, but they were in the story using technology to provide new solutions in the technology world. Particularly in the K-drama, the guy was doing, what was it? Visual recognition of objects through artificial intelligence. So you were pointing your phone, if you're seeing, pointing your phone at something, and the phone can visually recognize what that was. And for the purposes, I am not very sure. Let's say for the disabled, the phone can visually identify and verbally let's say, call out what an object is in front of somebody. But for us, let's do a definition, a short definition first of what startups are. Ito yung mga tao that usually does customer discovery in their process. So startups are, in the formal definition, the widely known definition, temporary organizations designed to search for repeatable and scalable business models, right? So si Steve Blank is one of the mentors and the original resource people for startup concepts and startup tools. So sabi niya, startups are temporary organizations, temporary, not forever, temporary, still experimenting on what they want to do, searching for repeatable and scalable businesses. Repeatable and scalable for us meaning we are looking for something that will work repeatedly in different markets and situations. If you can make it work in your school, you can make it work in 5 schools in CDO, you can make an idea work in 100 schools in the Philippines and maybe 10,000 schools all over the Philippines, because that is a model that works for the people who need it. We can grow something, repeat something 10 times bigger, 20 times bigger, 100 times bigger because of the model that we designed it with, and possibly with technology injected in it so that it works, right? Faster growth with less resources involved. So medyo technical pa to. If you are starting off with your subjects pa lang in technopreneurship and innovation, this might be a bit more technical, but just note the highlighted terms. We're looking for projects that are temporary organizations looking to experiment and figure things out with a business project, right? Or that it is also searching for repeatable and scalable business models. How can we grow something bigger, faster with less resources? But going back, taking 2 steps back for us, let's simplify this. These organizations that we see are, and we see it as, startups are quite simply problem solvers. They are looking for um, problems in society and in business that have already been existing forever, but no one has completely solved yet. They are looking for new approaches to old problems with technology and innovation usually. They are introducing something new, right? And then they are also a new breed of innovator and entrepreneur. So they are now merging the power of innovation and technology and maybe the mindset of an entrepreneur to do something very sustainably. Yung makakatagal, uh, I guess in a longer runway or in a longer span of time yung project. So mixing innovation and entrepreneurship together is the life of startups, right? Um, and lastly, we think that startups and these kinds of organizations and people now are efficiently executing very, very big visions for projects. Because if they think about something that they want to do in a new way, they don't only think about it in a smaller scale. They start in a small scale, but they want to grow that very, very fast, very, very efficiently, and in a big scale. So efficient execution of big visions. These are the people that we work with. These are the people that we enable and provide resources and help to. And hopefully the class, these people who are in the Zoom and who are watching this session, you might take on this process and this role. Be a problem solver, inject innovation and entrepreneurship so that you can start solving problems in new ways, and maybe execute efficiently and scale in a big way, right? Scale your vision and your projects in a larger scale and in a larger stage. But where does customer discovery come into this conversation? Right? I've been talking about, oh, sorry, to our host, may naka-annotate lang po. So if you can reset that or clean that, there's something on the screen. Um, where does customer discovery come into this conversation for us and for you, right? Bakit nga ba siya magagamit in startups? Bakit lagi nilang ginagamit? And for you listening to this, who may be part of a class that is possibly involved in entrepreneurship, possibly involved in innovation, paano nyo nga ba siya magagamit? Katulad ng startups, similarly to how they think, for startups, we always advocate for building something, for beyond building something that works, we want to see them building something that people need. For them to be able to scale in a bigger sense, beyond a certain city, beyond a certain region, beyond a certain country, out into the world, they need to ensure that they are not only building something, a project, technology, hardware, or software that works. You can code it out. It works. All the buttons actually have a function, right? The algorithms make sense. But all of that is dependent on the people who will use it. So we are sure that once you complete your classes, once you graduate in the university, whether you're a business person doing a business plan, with a, let's say, a multi-chapter business plan on hand, or if you're a comp-sci or an engineering student who has a capstone project to build something digital or non-digital, we know kaya niyong gawin yon, and you can make that work. You can make the plans and write the plans. But our question to you is what you're building relevant to people? Is it realistic? Is it something that people need and will actually use, or maybe will actually pay for, right? So that is where customer discovery comes in, right? The uniqueness of startups, because they're experimenting and because they're trying to figure out ways to scale and grow bigger, they need to understand people, not just any small group subset of people. They need to understand people very deeply and understand their needs to make that possible. So again, for you, we expect the same from you, the same we expect from our startups. Beyond building something or thinking about something and making it work, are you offering something that people actually need, that people will actually use, and possibly to sustain your idea or your team? Are there also things that people will actually be willing to pay for eventually, right? So are there any clarifications on where we stand in customer discovery and what, at least what I've talked about so far, right? Any clarification on where we inject customer discovery in the situation? We're looking at people who will eventually innovate, people who will eventually build businesses, in whatever way or form you have, possibly. But we are looking at you understanding, more than offering your product and your service, understanding where the customers and the people come from, and what they need. Ano yung kailangan nila in their life, and ano yung actually gagamitin nila, right? So far, I have no reactions on the participant list and on the chat. So I will continue, but drop in any clarification, any curious question you have on chat. All right. Let me see if I can clear this. Clear up. All right. Ayun. There was something on the screen. I hope that's okay. I clear that out. We start with the what. What is customer discovery anyway? Nag-umpisa na tayo ng startup situations, but I wanted to also align us on a definition and what we're talking about. So, simply put, sabi ng Harvard Business School and the Rock Center of Entrepreneurship there, customer discovery is the initial and iterative process of understanding customer situations, needs, and pain points, right? I am curious also, in this room, We title this customer discovery, but usually when we talk about technology and innovation, we talk about two entities or two groups of people. We talk about customers and we talk about users, right? Especially in technology, when we have an app, when we have a website, when we have a robot, a drone, or anything that involves technology. We usually talk about customers and users. So curious lang, in this room of almost 60 people, does anyone know the difference between users and customers? On chat po. If I'm just curious, so has anyone discussed this in class? Or what is your understanding about the difference between users and customers? We could have also told you or titled this session user discovery. We titled this customer discovery. But in your mind, what is the difference between a user and a customer? Anyone in the room want to take a guess? I'll give maybe 5 seconds to wait for a typing or to wait for someone who has an idea. Meron po ba? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, wala pa. I wanted to clear this out and maybe add a trivia to you guys. Customers are ayan si Sir Jog. Hi Sir Jog. I'm
Hi.
your professor. Thank you Sir Jog. So, sabi ni Sir Jog, the customers are the one paying. Correct. So basically, and trivia to everyone, if you needed to differentiate or talk about what a user is and what a customer is, users are usually the people who engage with your product or your service, but may or may not be necessarily the one paying. Customers, very specifically, whether they use your product or your service, are the ones who give you money for something, who provide economic value back to you as a team or back to you as a company, right? So when we tell you customer discovery, we're also telling you that these are people who might be your paying customers eventually. But I also caution you that while we differentiate user and customer, they are both very important. Whether nagbabayad sila or hindi, pareho natin silang kailangan intindihin. So in this process, whatever we talk about today, whether or not people are paying you or not in the process and engagement that they have with you, kailangan din silang intindihin. So if I say customer discovery and customer situations, needs, and pain, if eventually you figure out that there are people in your process that have needs, pains, and situations but they're not paying you, importante din po sila. So wag natin pong kalimutan yung actual people also that might be using your product or service but might not be paying you. Okay, yun lang. Random trivia for the people in the room who might not have known this. If you're innovating, there is such a difference between user and customer. So let's go back to the definition. Customer discovery, naka-highlight yung initial and iterative process of understanding customers, situations, needs, and pain points. When I say customers, it's basically people. Whether you are dealing with big companies or individual users or customers, it is always people in mind. In a big corporation, if you are serving or providing a product or service for a corporation, it is also still people that you are dealing with. So we always understand ano yung sitwasyon, ano ang kailangan ng tao as a person, what pain points and difficulties are they going through in the situation that you want to provide something for them. Clear so far? At least in the starting definition, can I get a hey on chat if you are still following me on this? What is customer discovery? Hey on chat if the people on the Zoom room are still with me. Hey pa. All right. I'm seeing the haze come in. Okay. So this is where we pull our next discussions from, right? Customer discovery is understanding people. And people are in situations, they want something to happen to their situation. They need something because something is lacking. They have pain points or difficulties, right? And I have also an injection point here of related concepts. In your class, or if you continue on with your ideas, there is something called design thinking. Why am I mentioning this in the customer discovery session? Because very specifically, the design thinking mindset and approach, um, this specifically, this anong tawag, visual representation that you're seeing on screen was developed by Stanford Design School. So major institutions that are tackling innovation and research have developed this approach called design thinking. Nakasulat na sa definition niya, it is a human-centered approach to innovation. And it anchors on understanding customers' needs, right? So we sort of follow this mindset and this approach when we use customer discovery. Although this design thinking process has 5 or 6 actually steps depending on the framework that you see, customer discovery is on the first step. So when you hear about design thinking process, you really just need to understand that basically, or in its foundation, we want to understand people. The humans and the people are in the center of how we think about things. And the first step of that is customer discovery and empathizing. So understanding what people's situations are in their frame of mind, right? Putting yourself in the shoes of others and walking in it, right? So we are in that mindset of putting humans in the center, putting the needs of people in the initial stages. Let's go back to this. In the initial stages of thinking about innovating and thinking about problem solving. But hindi lang initial yung naka-bold, hindi lang initial yung naka-highlight in this definition. It's also iterative. Iterative meaning we repeatedly do the process. We have different repeating process and in different versions. So while we start off the process in understanding people, we repeatedly go back to it and check. So we will learn about why we do that in the later parts of my slides, but I need you to understand that customer discovery, we want to start off your problem solving, you're providing innovation in understanding people, but it is not only in the start that you do it. You go back to it from time to time. You always go back to understanding people. All right. So the next part of this, or the next aspect of customer discovery that we want to tackle is when, right? When in the aspects of, and again, katuloy nung initial, di ba? Do we use this in the beginning of thinking about ideas? Do we use it in the middle, or do we also use it at the end? And the when, also answering the question of what kind of projects can I use this customer discovery mindset and approach in? Are there different kinds of projects where I can use this kind of mindset and activity? So, una, tackling where do we use it in the beginning of thinking of ideas, in the middle, or in the end? We say, especially in startups and especially in experimenting teams where you are still trying to figure things out, we say all of the above, right? If you are a team that is doing a project, you start off with understanding people. When you are already in the middle, let's say you already have a prototype and an offer, right? And you want to launch that into the world, right? you still go back to tama ba yung understanding ko, and if I have it in if I have it in their hands already, am I still fulfilling the needs that they have? Am I helping the situation that they're in? And in the case that it ends, for example, the experiment actually has an endpoint. Let's say something didn't work out. An experiment variable has led the team to maybe stop or majorly change their project. You also go back to understanding people and why, 'di ba? Why something, an approach, an experiment variable did not work. So we think in any innovation project, you start off, very importantly, start off with customer discovery and understanding people, but you don't stop discovering customers there. You go back to understanding people even in the middle of your project if you already have your prototype or your offer already in their hands or they are already using it. And if an end point comes to your project, you still revisit and understand people. So, hindi lang siya sa umpisa, sa gitna din siya, sa dulo din siya, pabalik-balik tayo to understanding people, right? So, sa amin, all of the above is the answer to the when. But also, in the use case scenario, kailan ba natin pwedeng gamitin tong customer discovery approach? Am I only talking about startups? Sila lang ba yung pwedeng gumamit nitong customer discovery approach and the activities that you can do? We say it is not only applicable for technology projects. It's not exclusive to startups, right? Hindi lang to for the Steve Jobs and for the Jeff Bezos of the world. I don't want you to think that this is only exclusive for innovators in the technology field. This is helpful for you in any field that you want to deal with. Basta may tao involved and you are offering something to people, either as user or as customer. Because we're thinking about human-centered approach, diba? We're understanding people. And if you deal with people in different situations, this will be helpful for you. So a human-centered approach and decision making based on the customer's needs will be applicable whether you are a startup or not, whether you have tech or non-tech offerings to people, right? Because customers are people wherever you go. So to concretely explain this, right? Use cases and kinds of projects where you can use this approach. If you are dealing with thinking about programs, whether that is in school, in organizations, right? In the, let's say, the school government, if you are a student leader and you are trying to figure out programs that you want to give to your constituents, to your stakeholders. And starting with understanding people is very important, right? Even us, as Kubo Innovation Hub, we don't have a tech platform to offer. We are an organization of people who help other organizations to understand innovation. But we actually use customer discovery approaches to define and understand the needs of the people that we serve, right? If it is the student body that we serve, or the teachers that we serve, or the corporate partners that we serve, customer discovery pa rin siya, right? So for you guys, when can we use this? We can also use this in maybe thinking about programs for people. If you're thinking about events, again, yes po. Sir Jog, are you your mic is on? Baka lang po may concern. Wala. Kaya ba? Reminder for the people in the room, your mic might be on. I am hearing you. We might hear things that we should not hear. So for our host, can I request for you to mute the mics that are on? They might not know that their mics are on. Sir, to the host of the channel, Ayan. To the sirs and ma'ams who are handling the Zoom room, can I request for them to mute the mics that are on? May isa pa pong mic that is on. Just in case you might hear something that we shouldn't. All right. So again, yun. Okay. Reminder lang po, baka ma-unmute niyo yung sarili niyo. You might hear something that you shouldn't. So, ayan. Okay. So the next application of this, if you're thinking about events for people, again, organization in the student body, in the professional sense, even us, diba? We try to understand people, our customers, what they want, how they want it when we design our events, right? Maybe even people who are providing projects in infrastructure, in hardware, in building something for people, right? If the infrastructure or the whatever product or service serves people in their daily lives, there is a huge need for you to understand people, right? And what they need from you and from what you offer. And last but definitely not least, the people and the teams that we deal with the most, if you are providing innovation in industries, especially if you are disrupting and making new things in the industries, there is a huge need for you to go to the people that you want to serve and understand them in different ways, right? So again, just my just our additional thing here, right? We know that this session is towards the technopreneurship class, the innovation pitching competitions that will happen in your school. But we also understand that maybe, diba, eventually, beyond the competitions and the pitch sessions, you will deal with people and you will deal with different projects. We hope that you can bring this mindset and this approach large in the larger scale and in the larger application that it has on your life. Whether you are in the engineering class, the entrepreneurship, the business and entrepreneurship courses, whether you're in health or in education, the customer discovery approach and understanding this, the importance of this will have applications in a wider scale. Okay, that is we are done with the when can you use this, beginning, middle, or end. When can you use this in the different kinds of projects, in the different kinds of applications it may have on you, wherever you deal with customers and people who need something from you, right? Next is the how. So we've been talking about it, diba? What is customer discovery? It's basically understanding what people need, what people want, their situation in a problematic scenario that you want to provide a solution for, possibly. But how do we do it usually, right? And for us, it comes in three forms. It's asking, it's observing, and it's developing a profile of them as people. All right, we'll do a few methods in each category. Okay. So, ito na yung process of how to actually go to people and understand what they are. Because we have a short time, this is really just an overview. You might be able to deal with this specifically in the subjects that you have, but just so you know how the processes are, especially in how we do it in the innovation and the startup space, especially in student teams, when we do innovation challenges or idea challenges. How you understand people in the ask. First, ask in surveys. This is very usual in the student process, right? They usually ask us, can we do online or offline survey forms, right? The goal for this process is
Lahi
for
man lagi
you.
ni.
Yes po, I hear somebody, and again, be mindful of your mic. Baka may marinig kami na hindi namin dapat marinig. To the host, I also request that you might want to mute the mic of that one person I see. And thank you very much. So going back to the surveys, usually for student teams who are trying to understand the situation and trying to understand a large group of people, you will deal with survey forms. Goal of a survey form is for you to get significant number of people who respond to you in a specific set of data points, right? You ask a few questions, you distribute it to 100 people, to 500, to 1,000. Even in the industry application, they still use this. Google form, type form, or in some cases, the actual paper, diba? Feedback forms, right? So we think this is valid, especially if you're looking at getting responses and understanding people's insights in limited data points. But my caution here, and we always say there is limitations to survey forms because mostly they do this unsupervised. Wala kayo when they are answering. And the most you can do is provide instruction in a form. So however they understand it, they will answer you, whether that's multiple choice or they provide a short description of what you're asking, right? So this usually comes unsupervised and you can't usually go very deep with your follow-up questions because what you have in the form is already that, right? So usually limited siya to either your choices or how they explain their answer. Wala nang follow-up doon unless you write it out. But again, it's still unsupervised and you can't do on the spot referencing their answer. Also, for forms, for use for survey forms, we see it as a less engaging and sometimes less motivated form of knowing people because they easily can skip questions, they easily cannot answer, or they can just not care, diba? And ignore you. They might answer only what they want to answer. So in understanding people in survey forms, it's usually the first step. It's usually a very shallow discovery of people, but it can give you a significant number of data for a number of people. That's one way, that's one process in asking. The next, and sometimes the process that students are afraid of, is the ask through interviews. In the startup space, we always say, get out of the building, get out of the building, get out of the building, out of your classrooms and into the real world where the people are, right? And the goal for interviews is, engage in actual conversation and explore people's experiences. I ask our attendees to refrain from annotating and writing in the screen so that it does not distract other people. Thank you very much. All right. So, engage in conversations and explore people's experiences. Because it is, whether it is an online call or an on-site conversation with people, it is usually the more engaging process of knowing people. But there are notes of consideration here. As a customer discovery approach, we want interviews to be as casual and candid as possible. Casual and comfortable for people to share stories with you, candid and as honest as they can, share what they feel, share what they have experienced, right? The more casual and comfortable, the more honest, the better is the goal. All right. Number two, for interviews, and we tell this to either professionals or students who do interviews, do not make it a sales call. Do not make it a bentahan conversation. Especially if you already have ideas in mind and you do your interviews, do not start with benta, right? Uy, sir, ma'am, we have something for you. People put their walls up if they think you are selling them something or making them do something very abruptly, right? So interviews are really just chikahan sessions. We intend it to be neutral neutral conversations where you uncover stories of their experiences or reaction and feedback to their life, right? Um, we don't want it to be bentahan because they will not share honest conversation with you if feeling nila, ay salesman, may binebenta. No po, I don't want to pay for anything, right? But in any sense, because we want it to be casual, we want it to be neutral, we want to cover both the good and the bad in their experiences. Kanina sinasabi natin we want the pain points, we want the needs, but really as an open conversation, interviews you want to know the good side and the bad side. Alam mo kung ano yung meron na sila na nag-work for them, ano yung something na wala pa sila na kailangan nila. Discovering customers is knowing both the good experiences and the bad experiences for them. That is hopefully what an interview would sound like for you if you do that, right? Next, the next category is observation. If you are not asking them directly, you are observing them from afar, right? Because it is also different when you ask somebody face to face versus you are a third person outside of the situation looking in. And so the observe category, I note, we observe them in their natural habitat, in the natural situation, without you inserting yourself in the middle, right? So the goal is, for any situation, you see them in their real life, you see how they operate, they react, what patterns they do in their actions, and what habits people have, right? From afar, right? However, you can do that, observe them so that you are not seen, but you can see them and how they react in their normal space. That is when you see ano talaga yung nangyayari. Pag tinanong nyo kasi yung tao, especially, let's say example is commuter. Diba? Pag tinanong nyo, ma'am, do you prefer a jeep or a tricycle? Diba? In conversation, in interviews, they might say one thing in what pops up in their head, in what they can explain. But if you observe them in real life, you can actually see how they do it in everyday, diba? How they decide to do it. Jeep or trike ba yung sinasakyan? Papara ba sa kanto? Or gusto ba nila sa waiting shed pumupunta? Right? In natural habitat. Usually, you immerse yourself in the situation, whatever that situation is in. Be incognito as much as possible. Remove yourself so that they can operate in their natural habitat, but do not forget to record the data. Wag lang tayong nakatingin as an observer, of course, because we're discovering something, we need to be noting important things for us to learn about them. Minsan nakakalimutan. Nag-observe lang, nag-feel lang, pero hindi nag-record ng data. Okay. Observe also means sometimes looking at the available research and available reports that show you data already existing. So in customer discovery, you can also look at credible and updated data to understand the status of people in their different situations and also in a larger context in the industry. So if you see the picture, the small picture here, diba? If we're talking about internet, how many people have internet? How many people do not have connection to the internet? Who provides them the internet, diba? Usually there is research that you can already check. Just check if it's credible, the source is credible, and if it's up-to-date data, right? Limitations is sometimes there are numbers available, but there are vague or unclear context on the data provided. Sometimes also the validity of the data depends on how the researchers did the experiments and the data gathering. So you might not be sure how to use that data in the right context that the research gathered that number. And usually, it's a bigger scope. Medyo ang sense ng reports and industry data is in a bigger frame, not in the everyday lives that you see it. So my caution there is, we have limitations, but you can also use research to understand people. And last category I am 1024. All right. Last category is profiling. So in the startup sense, we use this always, right? You are building a profile, a one-page descriptive profile, like a Facebook profile, right? Um, that describes an ideal customer that you want to deal with, an ideal customer that you understand represents a group of people who you want to provide a solution for in the context of a situation. So what you see in the screen is a simplified example of a customer profile, diba? It can stand as close to reality as possible. You can actually provide a name. Usually you provide different descriptions relevant to the situation. What age are they? Are they 18? Are they 35? Are they 8? Are they 65? Right? This, let's say gender is also involved. Let's say their educational attainment is involved. But if you see here, we usually describe their lifestyle, and we usually describe problematic areas and what they want to achieve in a certain situation. So we won't be going very deep into the customer profiling, but what I'm telling you now is for teams, we usually build a stand-in or a representative profile to understand better a certain kind of person that we want as an ideal customer, right? So the goal really is to identify descriptive profiles of ideal customers or users that you want to deal with and provide something for. Usually, it's a set. Hindi lang siya isa. Because in situations, let's say traffic, there are different profiles that you are dealing with. You're dealing with commuters in traffic. You are dealing with private car owners in traffic. You are dealing with drivers in traffic. Public transport drivers in traffic. So usually, we have 1, 3, 5 sets of customer profiles that is important for us to understand the people we're dealing with as close to reality as possible, right? My considerations here, we need to reflect kasi tayo yung bumubuo ng profile. We write it out as we understand it in our head, and after we have already asked and after we have already observed, we can build a profile of who we think our representative ideal customers are. But we need to reflect as realistically close to reality as possible. And sometimes, again, multiple personas or multiple profiles are involved, right? So we can say, uy, ang ideal customer ko is like a Karla Legaspi, right? A 35-year-old female living in the suburbs that is usually affected by the traffic because mahirap ang public transportation sa barangay nila, let's say, right? Just an example. But it's really a person bio of your ideal customer, right? And then what? And then what do we do after we ask, after we observe, after maybe building a representative customer profile or persona? What do we do? From all of this, or from your selected process or approaches, do not forget to gather the data, whether it's in the form of survey, whether it's in the recorded form of your interview, whether that is in observation, in real life, or I forgot to mention observing in the online sense, like what people are talking about, what people feel about things, right? Gather all of the data and consolidate similar feedback and similar situations you can group together to see what patterns there are and to understand them in a group sense, right? We can't deal with individuals always. As startups, as innovators, we want to see patterns of what is happening in groups of people in significant number, right? 5 people are affected, 100 people are affected, 1 million people are affected in the same way. These are the things that we're looking for when we're trying to understand customers. And when you consolidate that data, honor what it says. Matigas ang ulo ng innovators, matigas ang ulo ng founders sometimes. Data might say something, but their plan says otherwise. I want my innovation to be this way, but the customer data is telling me something else. We say honor the data because that is harder to change. You can change what you offer. You can change the mind and the situation of a million people in an instant or in a few weeks and months. So honor the data and use it as basis for your next decisions or possibly doing a prototype, right? Or whatever offer you have. Test and validate for actual feedback. Whatever you do as an initial customer discovery is just the start. When you already have a package of an offer, whether that's technology, whether that's hardware or software or whatever it is, that is based on initial customer discovery. It is very different when you actually put it in the hands of people and you get feedback from that, from having them experience your offer, right? And when that happens, you will get actual feedback, learn from that, and as we say, rediscover or go back to customer discovery again. Pag nag-offer na kayo, pag hawak na nila, pag na-experience na nila whatever you're trying to offer, you will get data, and that is when you go back to what they say. Rediscover again what their reactions are, what they need. Did you actually help them in some way when you gave them something? And then, balik tayo. Customer discovery ulit in the middle, right? Or in the next step. Okay. And we go to, the why, the last aspect. This is my last point for you guys. Why do we need to do this? Whether you are a startup or in the journey towards becoming an innovator, a startup, if you are a, a team with a capstone project offering something for people, right? Why do we need to do this? A few points. One is efficiency. We want that for our process, whether it's experimenting, whether it's talking to people, we want to not, and yun yung last point here, we don't want to waste our time, our effort, and our money in producing something for people when we don't understand yet what they need. There is an approach where we already know what people want and we just follow a trend, diba? For, let's say, quote unquote, traditional approaches to this, susunod ka lang sa uso. Susunod ka lang sa mabenta, right? You see that uso ang milk tea, you will provide milk tea for the people, right? If you see what is uso in, let's say, transportation, ride hailing through apps, let's say, alam mo na, nakita mo na in the market what works and what is uso and what is mabenta, then okay, fine, follow the trends and follow what works. But if you are introducing new things to people, they might be apprehensive, or you might find it more efficiently to just follow some things that they need and they want in the situations that they have, so that hindi na kayo nagsasayang ng effort, money, and resources to test out something that does not, represent their needs or wants at this situation, right? The point number 2 here is ideate, create your ideas, develop your ideas, build something based on informed choices already. Unahin nyo na yung pag-intindi sa tao. From what fits their situation, from what people actually need. Para paglabas ng product, ng service, ng offering, walang pilitan. Inunahan nyo na sila, na naintindihan nyo na yung kailangan nila. And therefore, if you do customer discovery right, you will have ideally, instant users and instant customers. Kasi you follow the process. So, sinunod nyo na yung gusto nila as people. In the startup sense, again, babalik ako to something that we follow. Si Eric Ries is an author. He wrote the book called Lean Startup. So the fundamentals, what we only startups follow a process where we only build what people need in the most efficient way. So sabi niya, the goal of a startup, an innovator, a businessman that is doing this efficiently is to figure out the right thing to build, or maybe the right thing to offer, the thing that customers want and will pay for so that they will sustain you as a company, right? As quickly as possible. Don't waste your time building around assumptions that you have not checked with people. Build it from what the customers actually want. Sasabihin naman nila yun sa'yo if you approach them in the right way. You can observe that in their habits and in their patterns if you understand it and immerse yourself, or if you understand it and make informed choices honoring the data that you get, right? Any questions so far? We've covered, I hope we've covered what we intended to cover. Yes, we've covered the what is customer discovery, when can we use it, how do we actually understand people, and why it is important for us to do that, right? Any questions so far on what we've covered? That's the last portion. I have just one last point to make before we close out at least my session. Any questions on the chat? If we are okay with the the what, the when, the how, and the why, can I get a breakfast on chat? Chat in breakfast if you are clear on what we've discussed and you have no questions. Say breakfast. Random. Hopefully nakapag-breakfast everybody. Okay, si Rafael is clear. Eras is clear. Right? The people from 4A, 4F, I am seeing 4F, Eric John. Okay, Martin. Most people, we have 100 people. 107, 108 people in. Hopefully yung mga humabol, nakuha pa yung majority of it. Are there startups whose ano yun, sir? Typo lang po. Sir Jog, typo. Are there startup who's good without doing interviews? Who proceed without doing interviews? Tama ba yung pagkuha ko? Yes, who proceed without doing interviews. Yes, actually. So depending on, this is the discretion of the founders or the team to do or choose the approach that they need. Sometimes they do the interviews later. I think that they can proceed or start without doing interviews, but I believe that interacting with your customers one way or another, whether that is in conversation, in a formal interview, in focus groups, or like getting a small group of your actual users in a room together, that is inevitable in the teams or in startups, at least in that case. But you can start without interviews. You can choose the approach you want as long as it's valid. Sa amin lang po, it is really important that you interact with the people, the users and the customers you have in one way or another, right? Whether you do that in online forum or in actual conversations in a boardroom, in a one-on-one call, is up to the team. But we believe that you cannot do without. Hindi pwede na hindi kayo makipag-usap sa users and customers niya. So, is it good to interview relatives? We think that, and let's say the teams identify a problematic situation, you will have a certain group of customers that is experiencing that problem, if your relatives are of within that set of customers that experience the problem, you can start with them as practice. But we need you to avoid only having friends, family, and relatives as interviewees, especially if they are not fit as the right customers or the right people that experience the problem. Let's say, example lang po, the problem is public transportation in rush hour is very problematic, right? So, specifically public transportation. And let's say you are richy rich, right? You are very well off. You do not commute. You have 5 cars, right? And a helicopter. Extreme example, right? But what I'm driving at is, let's say your relatives, your friends, your circle of people do not fit into the group of people that experience that specific problem. Wag niyo po silang isama just for the sake of counting out a number of people. Like, I have 10 interviews already. You can start with your family, your relatives, your friends, the if they fit the profile, if they fit the actual situation. But we want you to go beyond your parents, your friends, and your relatives. They will be biased one way or another answering your questions because they know that you are the one doing something about it. And they will say, ay, good yan. Diba? Your tita, your titas and your titas will say, ay, napakagaling naman, may inaanak. Diba? Go mo yan. I believe in you, right? One way or another, however you look at it, your family, your friends, and your relatives will have some bias. You can start with them as a practice, and especially if you want to get a hang of conversations, but as practice, and if they are in the specific set of people you want to tackle in the situation. But again, go beyond them. Hindi pwedeng sila lang. Yan. Thank you, Sir Jog, for the clarifications. Any other from our students, sa mga nag-breakfast, for the people who say breakfast? I hope it has been clear. Any other clarifications or follow-up, Sir Jog, also? Let me know. Yan. Some common misconceptions for us, and again, survey forms. Minsan, ang dami-daming forms na ni-release. Tapos, a small percentage goes or returns to them. Minsan yung forms, incomplete pa yung results. So, diba, the validity of, there are research metrics or there are research rules to say if your experiment is valid in the data gathering sense. So, meron talaga kaming caution against survey forms. Sometimes students prefer it because they have hundreds of people that it is more valid. But usually it's not. Again, it's unsupervised. And it depends on the motivation of people to write out and answer your survey. So talking to them, actual conversations with them, sometimes nga the interview, we also count as conversations lang. Because sometimes when you put it as a formal interview, people frame and act and answer differently. If you actually put them in a room and say, hi po ma'am, we're recording this conversation, this is an interview. Versus, upo lang kayo. Makikausap kayo sa mga tao if they allow you to, diba? Ask in actual casual conversation. They will more likely honestly answer you. Is customer discovery done once or continuously in the startup journey? Yes po. Kailan po? Usually, most importantly for us, start with customer discovery, but it does not end in the initial customer discovery. You do it continuously and you go back to actually looking at the people's situation at each point. You start with customer discovery, understand people muna before you offer something. Once your offer is clear to you and you offer it to them or you launch it to them, you still do the customer discovery approaches. You still go back to looking at what people still need and the reactions that they have of what you offer, and then continue siya. Like every time you check how people react, how people engage, and what changes in the situation have you affected, or what changes in the situation is happening that you are operating in, right? Pabago-bago ang lahat. So customer discovery is continuous. Hindi lang siya sa umpisa. Hindi lang siya natapos sa isang survey form, right? So, yun, sir. Okay. Any other questions? Drop it on chat, but I will make my last point. My call to action as Kubo Innovation Hub representative, as Karla Legaspi of the community team at Kubo, and doing this session with you guys at USTP, ulitin ko lang yung point that I had in my earlier slide. Our call to action for you, if you are doing something, a project, an idea that you want to pitch in a competition, your capstone project, your feasibility study, or whatever you have, right? Understand people, because in this journey of innovation, in dealing with people in general, when you're offering them something, we want you to go beyond building something that works or focusing your energy on your offer, but we want you to go for and to give your efforts and to provide your focus on understanding the people, building something that works but is also something that serves people's needs and makes people's lives better, if that is a bigger vision. People need solutions to their pain points and their difficulties. Industry practitioners need help in making their operations and their processes easier, more convenient, more efficient. So think about people's needs first, and then build from there, and then build something that works based on what those people need. All right. That is actually my last point. Hopefully, yeah, 10:47, just right. From when we started. I hope that has been clear. I hope yung mga nag-attend dito of 100 people gained something, trivia, or maybe just pull in your heart to understand people more. But if there are no questions, wala nang pahabol on chat, I hope that this session has been beneficial for everybody that listened in. So I am transferring this back to our host, or to Sir Jog, to take it away and to maybe do our last reminders for our attendees in this session. Yeah.
Okay.
Go
So
ahead, Sir
that's it.
Jog.
No? Thank you very much, Ma'am Carla, and thank you for gracing our event. So we do apologize now for the signals. We have problems, lots in signal quality, so that's why our chancellor was able to speak kanina, and also the host was not been able to be with us because of internet signals. So anyway, that's the problem with technology. But again, the Center of Entrepreneurship and Technology is very thankful for Kubo, and we are looking for a long-term partnership with you guys, knowing that you are one of the premier incubators and startup enabler in the Philippines. Ma'am, can you share muna yung screen? Okay, yeah. So para kita din. So at this juncture, we would like to give our thanks to our speaker, Ma'am Karla Legaspi of Cuba, for gracing this event. And we would like to give you the certificate of appreciation. Okay, let's read it. Certificate of appreciation is presented to Karla Legaspi for speaker for customer discovery. So given this 28th day of December 2022, I was shooting Pasqua and of course my course Chanel professional. So thank you very much. And before we go, let me just request everyone. So as usual, when we are online, we are going to have the standard photo ops section along with our speaker. Okay, so let the host do the honors. So for our audience, please do open your cameras. Okay. Okay, so I think that's concluded the photo op session. So again, in behalf of the Chancellor and the Center for Entrepreneurship, we thank Kubo Innovation Hub, particularly Ma'am Karla, for gracing us. Hopefully, hindi kayo magsasawa for partnering with us. And actually, the customer discovery is a very important topic wherein everyone should know in any product startup. It's usually, and also the design thinking concept. And we are so thankful because the presentation, I think, is given us justice because it's very concise and very not that too techy, but also considered siya na light at the same time very informative. So the usual trademark for lecturers in the Kubo Innovation Hub. So in that light, again, we thank each and everyone who have been part of this lecture series. And as a note, this lecture series is actually provided by the Center for Entrepreneurship in order to beef up the discussions on the class. So for our Tech 101 and Tech 10 class, we have sessions which are in the classroom, but we always opt to up that we go for knowledge coming from the experts in the ground, those who are really doing the thing, like startups like Kubo Innovation Hub. No? So this is just the first of a part 4 series of lectures that the center is offering to the startup community in the students in USTP, but also other people who are interested in generating startups and entrepreneurship. So again, thank you very much, Ma'am Karla, and all the people who have been with us this morning. And we hope that you will have a nice day ahead. And that's it for today. Thank you.